Welcome back to the deep dive. You know the drill, right? We're all about getting to the heart of things, cutting through the noise, and you're here because you're just like us. You want to learn stuff, you want to learn it fast.
Absolutely. No time wasted. And today, today we're getting our hands dirty with something, how do I put this? A bit intense. Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We're diving headfirst into a brand new online slot game called Mental 2. You might have heard of it, buzzing around online, making some waves. It's from No Limit City, and those guys, well, they're known for pushing boundaries, let's just say.
No Limit City doesn't shy away from the dark side, that's for sure. You think back to some of their other games like San Quentin X-Ways, or even El Paso Gunfight, they definitely have a style, a certain grittiness, complex gameplay, visuals that'll stick with you.
Mental 2 is actually a sequel. The first Mental game came out back in 2021 and is a big deal, especially for fans of this kind of more intense, darker style.
Oh, yeah. Mental was a memorable experience. Visually, it was striking, and the gameplay was no walk in the park. Really challenging. And from what we've gathered, Mental 2 is taking that formula and cranking it up. Our sources describe it as a wretched sepia-stained hellhole of an asylum. I mean, that's just one quote.
Yeah, the imagery they're using is pretty vivid.
Yeah.
There's talk of a murderous, deranged daughter among the characters.
Yeah,
So yeah, not exactly a lighthearted, happy-go-lucky kind of slot game.
not at all. Buckle up is all I can say.
That's good advice. So today, we're on a mission to break this whole thing down for you. Deconstruct Mental 2, understand its mechanics, the features, and figure out what makes it pick. What sets it apart from the rest of the slots out there. Ready to get started?
Absolutely. Let's lay down some groundwork first. The basic structure of the game, the grid itself, it's not your typical setup. Instead of 5 reels with 3 rows each, Mental 2 has a 3-2-3-2-3 configuration.
Okay, that's already a little different. So
Right.
how many ways to win are we talking about here?
Initially, there are 108 ways to win, but that's just the starting point. As we dig into the features, you'll see how that number can explode upwards.
Gotcha. Now, the volatility rating on this one is listed as insane. 12 out of 10. I mean, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it lives up to its name in that regard. Insane volatility means those wins might not come around often, but when they do.
It could be huge.
Exactly. You're playing the long game, hoping for those less frequent but potentially massive payouts. Now, the RTP, the return to player percentage, is actually fairly standard at 96.06%.
Interesting. So high risk, high reward potential. Makes sense. What about the symbols themselves? What are we looking at there?
10 regular paying symbols. They're divided into 2 groups. 5 skeletal symbols, those are the lower paying ones, and then 5 higher paying patient symbols. The theme, well, it's definitely reflected in the symbols.
Yeah.
Not exactly cheerful.
As expected. What kind of payouts are we talking about for these regular symbols?
On the lower end, for 5 of the skeletal symbols, you're looking at 0.5 to 0.75 times your bet. For the patient symbols, it's a bit better, ranging from 1 to 2.5 times your bet for 5 of a kind.
All right, so the big win's got to be coming from the features then, right?
Definitely. The features are where Mental 2 really shines, or should I say, gets really dark, and there's a lot to unpack there. Fireframes, fire reels, dead patients, enhancer cells. It's a whole ecosystem of crazy.
Okay, let's take it step by step. What are these fireframes all about?
So imagine this. On any spin, anywhere from 1 to 13 positions on the grid can randomly become fireframes. If a symbol lands in one of these fireframes, it splits in 2. More symbols, more potential winning combinations.
Makes sense. More of a good thing is always good. And then we have fire reels. Those are, well, I guess the name is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, fire reels are basically like supercharged fireframes. Randomly, 1 to 5 of the reels can become fire reels. And any symbol that lands on a fire reel, it splits into 3.
So the ways to win can really multiply quickly with these features.
Absolutely. That initial 108 ways to win can become way, way bigger with these splits happening.
Okay, now we got to talk about these dead patients. I mean, the name alone is kind of freaky.
Yeah, it's a pretty grim feature, visually speaking, but in terms of gameplay, it can be really powerful. Here's the deal. When you land 2 or more dead patient symbols, each of those symbols reveals one of the regular patient symbols. The twist is that revealed symbol comes with a multiplier.
The multiplier. Okay, that's interesting. How big are we talking?
Well, the multiplier can range from by 5 all the way up to by 9,999. It's tied to the number of symbols currently on that reel. So if you've got a bunch of splits happening because of fire frames or fire reels, that multiplier can get seriously huge.
Wow. Okay, so these dead patients are definitely ones to watch out for.
Mm,
Next on the list, we have enhancer cells. Those are at the bottom of reels 2, 3, and 4, right?
that's right. Think of them like little bonus slots that activate depending on how many fireframes are active.
Okay, so more flames, more active cells.
Exactly. 4 fireframes will activate the cell on the second reel. 6 fireframes will activate the cells on the second and fourth reels. And if you get 8 fireframes, all 3 enhancer cells are active.
I'm guessing the fire reels play into this as well, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. A fire reel counts as 2 or 3 fireframes, depending on its size. Now, these enhancer cells, they can reveal a few different things, each with its own effect on your spin.
Okay, like little power-ups.
Exactly. You might get a regular wild symbol, which is always helpful for completing winning lines.
Standard stuff.
Then there's the XSplit symbol. This one's a little more interesting. It splits one symbol on each of the 5 reels into 2, and the XSplit itself transforms into 2 wild symbols.
Okay, so it's a double whammy. More symbols and more wilds. What else can we get?
We've also got the XNudge Wild. This one's pretty cool. It will always nudge up or down until it's fully visible on the reel. And for every step it nudges, its win multiplier increases by 1. So if it has to nudge a few times to become fully visible, that multiplier can add up.
Makes sense. And what happens if you get more than one X-Nudge wild involved in a win?
Their multipliers add together. So you could have a couple of those nudging around, each with their own multiplier, and they all combine.
That could really boost the payout. And I bet the X-Split can interact with this in some way, right?
You know it. If an X-Nudge Wild gets split by an X-Split, its multiplier gets an extra bump, increases by 1.
Okay, so there's some serious multiplier potential with these features. What's the last of these enhancer cell modifiers?
The last one is called X-Ways. When an X-Ways appears, it reveals 3 identical paying symbols, and that effectively increases the height of the reel for that spin.
Right. More symbols, more ways to win, and what happens if you land multiple X-Ways?
They all reveal the same paying symbol. So imagine, potentially, you could have a whole bunch of the same symbol across multiple reels because of these X-Ways.
Yeah, that can lead to some nice wins. Now, on to the X-Hole. Given the whole asylum theme, this one sounds a bit creepy.
The X-Hole is interesting. It triggers when an X-Hole symbol lands within a fire frame or on a fire reel, specifically on the second position of the third reel. When that happens, get ready for some chaos. All the regular paying symbols and regular wilds get pulled off the reels.
What? They just disappear?
Well, not exactly. They get redistributed to random new positions on the grid. And here's where it gets really wild. Their symbol sizes are multiplied. It could be by 2, by 4, or even by 8.
Hold on. So you've got these symbols flying around, potentially becoming huge.
Yeah.
What happens to the X-Hole symbol itself?
It turns into a regular wild. Oh, and any symbols that were part of a winning combination before the X-Hole activated, they return to their original positions. It's a whole spectacle.
Sounds like it. A lot to keep track of. All right, next up we've got the xMental feature.
xMental activates when an xMental symbol lands in a fire frame or on a fire reel. And basically what you get is supercharged extra spin. Every single position on the grid becomes a fire frame for that one spin.
Guaranteed splits everywhere. That's pretty powerful. And I'm guessing those enhancer cells are going crazy during this spin too.
You bet. They can reveal any of the modifiers we talked about. X-Ways, X-Nudge Wilds, regular wilds, or X-Split. And the X-Hole can even trigger during the xMental spin too.
Wow, things get really crazy, really fast with that feature. Any catches?
Just one. If an active xMental symbol lands on the same spin that triggers a bonus round, well, the xMental feature doesn't activate. It's like it knows something bigger is coming.
Right. It's got to save its energy for the bonus rounds. And speaking of which, let's move on to the mental transform feature.
All right. Mental transform is all about those disembodied scatter symbols. You know, those creepy ones. When one of those lands on the second or fourth reel, it transforms.
Transforms into what? A butterfly?
Not quite. It could become an X-Way symbol, an X-Split symbol, a dead patient symbol, a regular wild, or even one of the regular patient symbols. It's unpredictable, which makes it exciting.
Yeah, keeps you guessing. And those disembodied scatters, they're part of what triggers the bonus rounds, right?
Exactly. There are 2 types of scatters, cognitive and disembodied. Cognitive scatters appear on reels 1, 3, and 5, while disembodied scatters appear on reels 2 and 4. You need specific combinations of these to trigger the different bonus rounds.
Lay it on me. What do we need for each round?
Okay, so 3 cognitive scatters will give you 8 bloodletting spins. 3 cognitive scatters plus 1 disembodied scatter gets you 8 surgery spins. And if you manage to land 3 cognitive scatters and both disembodied scatters, well, then you unlock the top tier bonus, 10 experimental spins.
Bloodletting, surgery, experimental. These names are getting more and more intense.
Yeah, they definitely fit the theme. Oh, and if any of those scatters land within a fire frame, you get an extra spin added to your starting amount. Fire reel landing, you get 2 extra spins per scatter.
So the more splits you have when you trigger the bonus, the better. All right, let's break down these bonus rounds one by one, starting with Bloodletting Spins. What makes them special?
During bloodletting spins, any fire frames and fire reels that were active when you triggered the bonus, they stay sticky for the whole round.
Sticky. What does that mean?
They stay in place, so you're guaranteed to have those splits happening on every spin. Lots of potential for big wins there, and there's a chance to upgrade to the higher bonus rounds too.
How does that work?
If you land 1 disembodied scatter during bloodletting spins, your remaining spins get upgraded to surgery spins, and you get 1 extra spin. 2 disembodied scatters. Bam. You're in experimental spins territory with 2 extra spins.
Okay, so there's a clear progression there.
Yeah.
The better the trigger, the bigger the potential.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about surgery spins. What sets those apart?
Surgery spins take the bloodletting spins mechanics and add even more. You still have the sticky fire frames and fire reels, but now any disembodied symbols that land, they become sticky too. And on each spin, those sticky disembodied symbols trigger the mental transform feature.
Okay, lots of transformations happening. Anything else special about surgery spins?
Oh yeah, there's the dead multiplier. It's a bit complicated, but basically, the game keeps track of the highest multiplier from each dead patient symbol that appears, along with its count. That count represents how many times that specific patient symbol has been revealed with a multiplier.
Okay, I'm following so far. Then what?
Once collected, that dead multiplier can be transferred to matching patient symbols that land on the reels. And this transfer is based on their count. Every time a dead multiplier is transferred, the count for that patient symbol goes down by 1.
Okay, starting to get a bit tricky now. Any important caveats for the listeners to keep in mind?
Just one main thing. The dead multiplier can't be transferred to symbols that are revealed directly from another dead patient symbol. And just like with bloodletting spins, if you land a new disembodied scatter, you get bumped up to experimental spins with an extra spin.
All right, that's surgery spins for you.
Yeah.
A lot going on there. Now, the grand finale, experimental spins. This is the top tier bonus, right?
Exactly. Experimental spins take the surgery spins features and ramp them up. Sticky fire frames, sticky fire reels, both disembodied symbols sticky and triggering mental transform on every spin. But the big difference is in how the dead multiplier works.
Ah, the dead multiplier. I knew it would come back.
It always does. So in experimental spins, once a dead multiplier is transferred to a patient symbol, the count doesn't decrease, it just stays there.
Wait, what? So that means the dead multipliers can keep piling up on those patient symbols.
You got it. Throughout the whole bonus round. The potential for huge wins is, well, it's insane.
Yeah, that's where that insane volatility rating really comes into play. All right, we've covered a ton of features already, but there are a few more things to mention, right? No limit booster, God mode, no limit bonus. Those sound pretty intense too.
They are. No Limit Booster basically lets you pay extra to guarantee certain features. For example, you can pay 1.4 times your bet to make sure a cognitive scatter lands on the first reel, or 6 times your bet to have fire frames on every single position.
Okay, so those are like high roller options.
Yeah, they can get pricey. You want to guarantee the X-hole activation, that'll cost you 99 times your bet. And if you want to force the xMental feature to activate, brace yourself, 3,200 times your bet.
Wow, God mode must be even more extreme then.
God mode is a whole other level. It costs 6,666 times your base bet. And when you activate it, you're basically aiming for one thing, landing a special XGOD symbol on every reel.
And if you do that?
Instant max win. It's the biggest payout the game can give you. You can technically achieve this in the base game too by randomly landing an XGOD symbol on each reel. But
the odds of that are probably astronomical.
Yeah, pretty much. It's more of a theoretical possibility.
Right. So God mode is like skipping the line and going straight for the jackpot.
You could say that. And then there's No Limit Bonus, which is basically a feature buy. You can directly purchase entry into one of the bonus rounds.
I see. So if you don't want to wait around for the scatters to land,
you can just buy your way in. Bloodletting spins will cost you 100 times your bet. Surgery spins, 250 times your bet. Experimental spins, a hefty 1,800 times your bet.
Yeah, those prices reflect the potential of each bonus round.
Definitely. And there's also a lucky draw option for 330 times your bet. That one randomly awards you one of the 3 bonus rounds.
Okay, so you're essentially gambling on which bonus you get. Makes sense. All right, we've really dug deep into the mechanics here. What about the overall impression of the game? What are our sources saying about the experience as a whole?
One thing's clear. Nolimit City is going all in on the dark and disturbing vibe with Mental 2. They've even included a viewer discretion warning mentioning violence, blood, and unsettling visuals.
Wow, a viewer discretion warning for a slot game. That's unusual.
It is, although our source does say it might not be as shocking as the original Mental. Still, it's a far cry from those happy-go-lucky slots with rainbows and puppies.
No puppies here, just darkness and mental institutions. It really makes you think, though, why are so many slots so bright and cheerful? Is it to distract from the fact that you're losing money?
That's an interesting question. Our source actually brought that up, too. They suggested that those cheerful themes might be there to soften the blow of losing. But when you're playing a game like Mental 2, with all its disturbing imagery, it's hard not to wonder if that makes the losses feel even worse.
Yeah, the psychological aspect is fascinating. I mean, losing is losing, but the context,
Yeah.
that can definitely impact how you feel about it.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the gameplay itself, it's clear that No Limit City has taken everything that worked in the original Mental and amplified it. Fireframes are back, but now we have fire reels too, dead patient symbols, mental transform, enhancer cells. Those are all making a return.
And they've added the X-hole and xMental features on top of that. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, our source described it as a lot of X features and a lot of potential mayhem, and I think that sums it up perfectly. There's a lot going on, a lot of different ways to win, and a lot of potential for things to go completely bonkers.
So it's not just a sequel, it's an evolution.
That's a great way to put it. They've taken the core concept and pushed it further, made it even more chaotic, more brutal.
And potentially more rewarding too, right?
Yeah.
What's the max win on this thing?
99,999 times your bet.
Okay, yeah. That's a lot of money.
It is. And it really speaks to that insane volatility. You're not going to hit those big wins often, but when you do, life-changing stuff.
No doubt. The original Mental was a huge success for No Limit City. So it stands to reason that Mental 2 will be just as popular, if not more so.
I think that's a safe bet. It's definitely a game that's going to carve out its own niche, attract a certain type of player.
The player who's not afraid of the dark, who enjoys a challenge, who's chasing those massive, life-altering wins.
Exactly. It's not for everyone, that's for sure. But for those who are into it, it's going to be a wild ride.
Well, there you have it. A deep dive into the twisted world of Mental 2, brought to you by No Limit City. Hopefully this breakdown has given you a better understanding of what this game is all about, its mechanics, its features, its unique and kind of disturbing charm.
It's definitely a game that stands out from the crowd. It's a statement, in a way, a rejection of the safe, predictable slots out there.
And it raises some interesting questions. What does it say about us as players that we're drawn to these darker, more intense games? What does it say about the evolution of slot design? Is this the future of online gambling?
Those are questions worth pondering. And we'll leave them with you to think about.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time, or we'll be exploring. Well, who knows what darkness lurks around the corner. Stay tuned.